Almost 2 years after the release of Project Cars 3, Bandai Namco received a strong backlash from the fans and a lot of mixed reviews for this particular installment. And that is because the creators of the game decided to divert from the sim style they had with Project Cars 1 and 2 for a more of an arcadey experience. But the question is, almost 2 years later, was it really that bad? What's up everyone and welcome to a new video. My name is Omar with Real Gamer Review, and today we are reviewing Project Cars 3 a bit over 2 years after its initial release. If you are watching my channel for the first time, a like and a subscribe would be hugely appreciated. Before diving into details, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Yes, most probably it is disappointing for the fans of the series making that change, as they were expecting the series to continue somewhere along the same lines. But at the same time, I also understand the decision, as they want to open a new market and invite new fans for their game. So during the course of this video, I'll be reviewing the game, how it was marketed and portrayed by the creators of the game, and I will exclude the fact of the change from sim style to arcade. Well, since we got this part out of the way, without further ado, let's get right into it. First thing I would like to talk about is the handling, and just because the game diverted a bit into the arcade style instead of sim, don't get this wrong, it is definitely not much easier. If you think that the game now is somewhat like the Need for Speed series when it comes to the gameplay and handling, then think again. The gameplay is still leaning a lot more into the sim side when it comes to the overall gameplay and handling. So basically it is not a full-on arcade and not a full-on sim as well. It is a bit in the middle between both. Some people were comparing it to Grid, but I would say it is not, as Grid is a bit more forgiving compared to this game. I think if I would compare it to another racing game, I would say it is more similar to Gran Turismo Sport if you played it before. Coming to the campaign part, I would say it's a straightforward one with different classes for cars, and as most racing games out there, you are starting from the bottom and earning your way up through winning different types of races and progressing through the campaign. There are several types of races included in the game, which are race, which is the normal race style, hot lap, which is basically the equivalent of a time trial, championships, which usually contain 2 or 3 races where you earn points depending on your finishing position, and the points get calculated at the end to determine the winner. Breakout, which is a cool addition as you have small boards to break on the track, and each board gives you a certain number of points, and for each race there is a certain score to achieve before the time ends. Invitationals and challenges, which are events that get unlocked or you get invited to when you reach a certain rank in the career mode. Lastly, we have the multiplayer, which we will be talking about more later on. Also added is another category called Rivals, which are weekly challenges that get updated every week and replaced with new ones, and your scores and timings are compared with other players of the game around the world. The game has over 200 vehicles and around 120 track layouts. Of course, starting the game, most of the cars are locked, and you get to unlock them by progressing through the career and earning higher ranks. One particular point worth mentioning, this game, among a small number of racing games out there, has a helmet cam, which is a small but welcomed addition, as it reminded me a lot of my all-time favorite racing games, Need for Speed Shift. And actually, that is not only my opinion. According to the CEO of Slightly Mad Studios, A.M. Bell, the game is a spiritual successor to the Need for Speed Shift series. The overall gameplay experience is pretty good actually, and I liked it a lot. How the car handles, different tracks, the helmet cam. But one issue that really annoyed me, which I mentioned in my initial review of the game, but unfortunately it hasn't been fixed till now, which is the difficulty. It is just all over the place, and it actually depends on the track, not how you set the difficulty. For example, if you are playing in a big track with easy corners, you will easily win even if you set the difficulty to the highest, which is called Legendary. You will feel that the AI rivals aren't even trying. On the other hand, if the track is a bit narrow with hard corners, you'll be struggling to win even on medium difficulty, and sometimes less. As for the car customization, there are basic car customization options, which basically covers liveries, paint, and rims. You can also upgrade the car with different parts to enhance its performance, but be aware that if you add too many upgrades, it will move the car up to the next class, and you won't be able to play with it in the same class you are in anymore. Also, there is an advanced car adjustment that you can do if you would like to play with the car acceleration, gears, and handling. The multiplayer mainly has 3 modes, which are Quick Play, Scheduled Event, and Custom Lobby. Before explaining them, unfortunately the multiplayer lobbies in 2022 are pretty empty. I tried to connect multiple times with no success. Every time I get the message that there are no available lobbies currently. So if you are only into multiplayer, then I wouldn't recommend this game for you. Coming to this part, I would say that the graphics and visuals are pretty good. Definitely not the best out there, but still decent enough for 2022. The car models, tracks, overall visuals, lighting and reflections are pretty good. Not the best out there, but I would say they are decent enough. The game has dynamic weather conditions, so it can change from dry to rain while you are on the same race. And there are degrees for the amount of rain, which is pretty subtle, but still a good addition. The first time I played the game, I didn't even notice that till a few hours into the game. Another thing I noticed worth mentioning is that the damage engine they implemented in this game is pretty good, unlike some other racing games out there. Of course, as always, for the best visual experience, I would recommend playing the game on PC. And for the best experience on consoles, it would be the Xbox Series X and PS5. But be aware that the game didn't receive any new gen patches, so you'll be playing the backwards compatible version on both of those consoles. The game has 2 graphics modes on all consoles, which are quality and performance. As per few reports online on PS5 and Xbox Series X, the quality mode targets a dynamic 1440p resolution with 60 frames per second. And for the performance mode, it is dynamic 1440p resolution with 60 frames per second as well. Probably you are now wondering what exactly is the difference between both modes. Well, that's because the game is running on backwards compatibility mode, as those 2 modes were meant for the last gen consoles. As the quality mode was targeting also a dynamic 1440p with 60 frames per second, but more often in visually demanding areas, it sometimes went down all the way to 1152p, where the frame rate went down as well to the low 50s. As for the performance mode, it has a slightly better frame rate where it went down only to the mid-50s, around 55 frames per second in the visually demanding areas, but was capable of reaching 60 frames per second most of the time. And that was the case for the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, with the Xbox One X having a bit better performance due to the more power it has. As for the base PS4 and Xbox One, the target was a dynamic 1080p resolution where it sometimes went down to 972p and the frame rate was between 40 to 60 frames per second. But overall, you are still getting a pretty decent visual experience for this game on most consoles. Coming to the music and audio department, as I said in my initial review, I was impressed and still am, especially by the choices of the menu tracks, which are pretty good, and I've mostly enjoyed listening to them while scrolling around the menus. As for the audio part, the car tires, shifting paddles, gears, and engine sounds are pretty good as well. What is impressive as well is the rainy conditions audio, especially during a storm. It sounds pretty good. As always, I'll leave you now with a few clips so you can judge the audio yourselves.
We're in sight of the podium.
As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I'm not reviewing this game based on the change that they've done from sim to arcade. I understand it might be a bit disappointing for the fans of the series, but still the creators of the game since the beginning didn't market the game as a sim racing experience, so I'll be giving my final conclusion as it is. Despite the dead online mode, the overall game is pretty good and I kind of love it. Since the release of Need for Speed Shift, I didn't find any game that just gets the mixture between sim and arcade in the right amounts. It is truly the spiritual successor to Need for Speed Shift. The game overall did a pretty good job when it comes to most aspects. It is pretty decent racing game that I would definitely recommend if you are into that type of games that hold the middle ground between arcade and racing. But if you are just into sim racing, I would skip this one as it's not for you. Alright, time to wrap this up. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, then leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.